Minimalism isn't about removing things you love. It's about removing the things that distract you from the things you love. Hi, I'm Rob West. Those words from Joshua Becker remind us that clutter competes for more than our space. It competes for our attention, affection, and generosity. Today, Joshua joins us to talk about possessions, simplicity, and how owning less can help us love more and live with greater purpose. And then it's on to your calls at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance Live, biblical wisdom for your financial journey. Well, it's a pleasure to welcome Joshua Becker to the program. He's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, a leading voice on minimalism and intentional living, and the founder of Becoming Minimalist. His latest book is Uncluttered Faith: Own Less, Love More, and Make an Impact in Your World. Joshua, great to have you here.
Oh, Rob, thank you for having me on. It's good to be here. This is such an important conversation. Thank you for having it.
I couldn't agree more. You know, Joshua, when many people hear the word minimalism, they picture stark white walls or maybe the idea of getting rid of nearly everything they own. But in Uncluttered Faith, I appreciate that you approach it from a much deeper spiritual perspective. I want you to back up and maybe share with us what led you to connect our possessions with our spiritual lives.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Maybe I'll just start out by saying that minimalism is going to look different from one person to another. And some people might like stark white walls and other people might not. Some people might want to live in a tiny home. Some people might not. So we can get that right out of the way. Yeah. I discovered minimalism 18 years ago. Was living a pretty typical middle-class American lifestyle before then. Actually, it was a Saturday morning. I went to clean out my garage. My 5-year-old son wanted me to play with him, and I spent hours on the garage, neglecting spending time with my son Salem. And at the end of the day, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I spending so much time and energy maintaining possessions when I could be spending my life on something bigger and better? So that was my introduction into minimalism. My wife and I got rid of about 60-70% of our possessions over the course of a year. Each time we did, I discovered my life getting better in very practical ways. Like, we owned less stuff, which meant our lifestyles cost less. It meant our home was easier to maintain. We were living a better example for our kids and opportunity for generosity. I connected the journey to my faith. I was a pastor at the time. We were decluttering one of our bathrooms, and I turned to Kim and I said, "Where's minimalism been my entire life? Like, all these benefits of owning less. How come no one told me about it before?" Yeah. And of course, it occurred to me that Jesus was saying the same thing thousands of years ago. He was inviting us to own less for the sake of devoting our lives to something bigger and better and more important than material possessions.
Wow. Who knew that Saturday garage cleaning could lead down a life-altering path? But I love it. We've got about a minute before our first break here. How do you define minimalism? Because as you explain in the book, it isn't just about getting rid of clutter. It's really about reordering our lives around what matters most, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I define minimalism is the intentional promotion of the things we most value by removing anything that distracts us from it. Like, very simply put, we spend a lot of our time and a lot of our money accumulating physical possessions, maintaining physical possessions, desiring more physical possessions. But God has called us to something better. And there are things in our hearts that we value more than physical items. No one says my greatest dream in life is to just own a house full of clutter. And so minimalism is owning just what I need to accomplish the things in life that I value most by removing anything that distracts me from it.
Yeah, well, that's really helpful. Well, after this break, we're going to continue to unpack that. We'll talk about this idea of margin and how that can come into our lives, not only around possessions, but our time and so many other areas as well. We'll talk about how our culture defines success and much more. Delighted today to be joined by Joshua Becker. He's the New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and his new book, which we're discussing today, is Uncluttered Faith. Own less, love more, and make an impact in your world. Much more with Joshua just after this break, and then on to your phone calls as well at 800-525-7000. Stick around. A less cluttered life can help us become more attentive to God, others, and the work He's given us to do. Hi, I'm Rob West. This is Faith and Finance Live. Joining me today is Joshua Becker. He's the author of the new book, Uncluttered Faith. Own less, love more, and make an impact in your world. Joshua, you write in the book that we're swimming in a culture of consumerism, often without realizing how deeply it shapes our desires and even our decisions. So what are some of the ways our culture pulls us away from the things that matter most?
Yeah, so true. I mean, you don't have to get very far in this world to see that we live in a culture of consumerism and marketing. We see 5,000 advertisements every single day.
Wow.
When you think about it, every single advertisement, its core message is that your life will be better if you buy whatever we're selling. And I think we hear this message so many times from so many places that we very subtly begin to believe it, and we begin to believe the lie that more is better, that success looks like having a lot of stuff and owning a lot of the world. And social media plays into this, and algorithms play into it, and marketers and corporations. And so anyway, it's really made an impact on the way we live. The average American home is 3 times bigger than it was 50 years ago, and yet excess has become so normalized in our world. It feels normal, but in reality, we're living pretty unique lifestyles.
Yeah, and we're spending billions every year as a nation on storage units to go along with those bigger houses. But you don't present this as simplicity requiring deprivation. You really describe it as a path toward abundance. I'd love for you to explain the difference.
Yeah, that's wonderful and so true. I hope joy is in my voice here. To me, I discovered that minimalism, and even if you don't want to call it minimalism, just intentionally owning less stuff or just intentionally owning what I need to own, the way to think about it isn't about what I'm giving up. Minimalism is really about what I add into my life, that I get to add opportunity for impact and generosity, focus on other people, get to add time and money and focus and attention into my life. This is the brilliance of minimalism. This is when minimalism makes sense. I don't intentionally own less just for the sake of owning less. I own less because I realize there's something bigger and better out there available to me, which is, of course, the kingdom of God.
Yeah, that's right. And, I think it's also important to acknowledge that enjoyment can still be a part of this. We serve a good God who created money and gives us all things, it says in 1 Timothy, for our enjoyment. And so, using money for a celebration with family and friends is a good use of a good tool so long as it doesn't become an idol, right?
Absolutely. I think that's the goal, right? That we would live our lives pursuing those things that bring us lasting joy, that we would spend our lives pursuing those things that result in treasures in heaven, that we want to use our resources to pursue a counterfeit worldly offer of joy, but we would use it for the real joy and the real abundant life that Jesus offers us.
Yeah. Let's talk about the idea of margin, Joshua. So many people today, I'm sure many of our listeners feel exhausted right now. Maybe they're stretched too thin. How does clutter contribute to anxiety and even overload?
Well, the studies in this area are abundant and are unanimous in their decision making that clutter adds to stress and anxiety and worry. The way Jesus tells it in Luke chapter 8, when he talks about the thorns that choke out the fruitfulness of the Word of God in our lives, he calls it worries, riches, and pleasures, chokes out our fruitfulness. A number of years ago, the New York Times ran a story and called the modern American generation the most tired, stressed, hurried, rushed generation of all time.
Mm.
And as I have pursued minimalism, as I have pursued intentionally owning less, I can see full well that there's a correlation between the fact that we own more stuff than at any point in human history, and we are more stressed and rushed than at any point in human history. Our lives and minds weren't designed to own as much stuff and care for as much stuff as we do today. And there's a better way, and Jesus was inviting us to it all along.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think sometimes we can get a better idea of something through stories. And you share this story in the book about Trish and her grandmother, this beautiful picture of a simple, faithful life that left a lasting spiritual legacy. Would you share that with our listeners?
Yeah, Trish told me her story a number of years ago, and it fits so perfectly into the book, Uncluttered Faith. Trish tells the story of growing up next to her grandmother, and her grandmother, I don't think because she had read about minimalism online or any other reason, but she just lived a very simple life. She loved gathering eggs, taking care of her garden. She would sit out on her front porch a lot of the time, and Trish had these wonderful memories of just spending time at her grandmother's house and seeing the life that she lived compared to what she was seeing at home and just the hustle and bustle all the time. And so as Trish was telling me the story, she said that model that my grandmother set for me always became the life that I wanted to live, the family culture that I wanted to have for my family. Not one where we're ambivalent to what's going on in the world, but just one where we've created enough space and enough margin in our lives that we can enjoy people, enjoy alone time, enjoy solitude, enjoy faith, and not be quite so rushed as the rest of the world could be.
Yeah. And the fruit of all of that often results in generosity. And we know that so much of what we pass on to our children is caught more than taught. And you devote a whole chapter to that connection. How does owning less then free us to give more?
Well, the connection is there, pretty obviously. If I am going to own less stuff, then that's going to impact my financial life in positive ways. And I always mention that this looks different for different people. Intentionally owning less stuff, if I live a life in debt, intentionally owning less means I can get out of debt. If I'm living paycheck to paycheck, as so many Americans do, intentionally owning less means I can finally get ahead financially. If I'm already ahead financially, minimalism means I can give more and I can be more generous and I can donate to causes that I believe in. I can become more involved in the kingdom of God. I can become more involved in charity. And the part that I love so much about this, which is so important, is, Jesus says, where our treasure is, our heart will be also. And I think a lot of us think to ourselves, if I loved God more, I could be more generous. I could give more at church or give more to the kingdom of God. But actually, Jesus' invitation is the other direction. It's if I give more, my heart will follow my treasure. And so if you want to love God more, give more at church, to the kingdom of God, to missionaries, to the work that God is doing, and our hearts will fall more in love with God, which is a helpful principle for people to think about. Because I think we all want to love God more and follow him better. And we can do it by supporting his causes financially.
This has been so encouraging. Joshua, thanks for stopping by today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Folks, the book's called Uncluttered Faith. Own less, love more, and make an impact in your world. Buy it wherever you buy books. We'll be right back.
The opinions offered during this program represent the personal or professional opinions of the participants, given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace advice from a financial, medical, legal, or other professional who understands your specific situation.
Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Well, in just a moment, we're going to begin taking your questions today. So if there's something on your mind, something you're wrestling with in your financial life, now is a great time to call. That number is 800-525-7000. Again, that's 800-525-7000. We'd love to hear from you today and help you process what's going on in your life financially today through the lens of biblical wisdom. So again, that number 800-525-7000. SpaceX in the news today. Shares had risen more than 30%, although today off 16.5%, so down 30 points. Since the company has gone public, it's left a lot of investors prior to today wondering, did they miss their chance to buy in? Clearly, today's volatility, I think, points to the fact that this thing is not going straight up from here, and there's going to be plenty of buying opportunities. And this is really true when we get into any initial public offerings. And that's why we need to be careful, because, a lot of people were calling us asking, hey, how should I think about IPOs? And, should I really be getting into these? And I think, number one, don't ever buy a stock simply because it's an IPO. IPOs generate a lot of media attention, but the fact that a company is going public doesn't automatically make it a good investment. Understand the business. Before investing, you need to know, how does the company make money? Is it profitable? Does it have a competitive advantage? Is the valuation reasonable? Now, that was what was interesting about SpaceX is absolutely very profitable, making a lot of money, definite competitive advantage. The question was all about valuation, especially given the rise, the run-up quickly after the IPO. Third is be aware of the volatility, and that's what we're seeing here today. Again, as I said, off 16.5% on the day. And IPOs experience big price swings in the weeks and months after going public. It's on full display today. And so a lot of investors will wait until the initial excitement settles into a more consistent valuation before, they jump in, and then keep your portion of your portfolio invested in it reasonable. I would say keep it small. Treat it as a speculative position rather than a core, let's say, retirement holding, and don't let fear of missing out drive the decision. One of the biggest mistakes investors make is feeling pressure to participate because everyone's talking about the company. So remember, good stewardship is usually patient and disciplined. It focuses on owning quality businesses, I would say businesses that are aligned with your values as a Christ follower and at reasonable prices, rather than chasing the newest opportunity. So just keep that in mind. Don't get caught up in the, wait a minute, I've missed out. I need to buy this before it's too late. That's just usually a recipe for disaster. All right, we're ready to take your calls and questions today. Let's dive in. We're going to begin in West Columbia today. Susan, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Of course.
I wanted to ask you, my husband and I are nearing retirement. We actually could retire now, but we're trying to work for a few more years. He's self-employed. We started investing for our retirement kind of late on because we had a large family. So we're behind the ball from some people, but we have more than some people. But
Sure.
My question is, we went with like a discount broker at first, but since I'm not really knowledgeable in that, we actually took our Simple Star SEP or whatever to a regular broker who was a Christian broker, whatever. Mm-hmm. But as we're getting near the end, I'm seeing how much these fees are costing, and I'm wanting to switch to a discount broker again that's offering a lot of different services now. They have like a lot of different services, and they said they have like an automated investment that they can do your risk factors, and it automatically, and there's no fees involved, and they'll give like free financial counseling, no charge, and you can also have a personal investor helping you, but it's not, the fees aren't as high as this broker that I'm with. So I want to see if you think that's a good idea, and if so, which that I'm leaning that way. What we should do? Should we do the automated thing? Should I try to learn how to invest? Should I just do an S&P index fund on it and just let it go? What is your suggestion?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, there's a number of things you've hit on here, and you're describing probably a robo-advisor. Fidelity has one, Schwab has one, Betterment has one, and they can do a good job of building and maintaining a diversified portfolio. So if we're talking strictly about asset allocation, the gap isn't as large as it used to be in terms of active money management versus more of a robo solution. But a skilled investment advisor can add a lot of value beyond the low-cost option that you're describing here, starting with the faith component. A lot of investors, and I think this is ultimately a conviction matter, so I'm not telling you have to do this, but more and more Christians are wanting their investment screened for their biblical values, making sure they avoid industries like alcohol or tobacco or a pharmaceutical company that, makes a drug that ultimately results in abortion or something like that. And that would come through either an asset manager like a mutual fund company that has a faith-based approach, or an investment advisor like a certified kingdom advisor who brings that to the table. In addition, a skilled investment advisor can offer a customized portfolio construction where it can be tailored around retirement timing and risk tolerance and other income and tax consideration and even legacy goals. That risk management and tax management, really can be key. And then more active monitoring and adjustments based on your life circumstances or goals or liquidity needs. So I think there's a lot to be said about, yes, there's more cost involved, but what are you getting for it? And is there value there? I think there absolutely can be. Now, the low cost approach, can be very effective as well. It is cheaper, and essentially you're just kind of buying the market and getting the market performance. And there's plenty of data that says that can do as well, if not better, than an actively managed portfolio. It really just comes down to the level of customization you're looking for. Let's talk a bit more off the air, Susan. We'll be right back. Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. We've got lines open. If you have a question, call right now, 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. I had a chance to talk a bit more with Susan off the air, and she had connected with a certified kingdom advisor. There just wasn't one in her town, and increasingly we're seeing more and more CKAs covering the country, even up into Canada. We now have 2,000 certified kingdom advisors, and that's growing by about 15% a year. So if there's not a CKA, a certified kingdom advisor in your area yet, there may be one very soon. So keep checking that website to find a certified kingdom advisor, findacka.com. We tried to make it really simple. All right, back to the phones. Kansas City, there are plenty of CKAs there. Angel, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I am a recently divorced mom, and I've got a full-time job. I was raised in a Christian household with good, sound financial advice, so I do understand about budgeting and saving and things like that. I am actually in the process of downsizing, and I've given a lot away, donated a lot, things like that. But there are some items that I do have that I'm wondering where the deciding point is for should I go ahead and sell this because it could help offset, another expense elsewhere a little bit quicker. So I'm really wondering where that deciding point is between going ahead and selling something and not as a full-time profit, but just some of the items I have versus going ahead and donating some of these things that I have.
Yeah. Well, I love this question, and I think it's wise to ask this. Selling what you no longer need is not wrong. Proverbs commends diligence, and Jesus warns against greed, but not stewardship. So I think a helpful line maybe is motive and freedom. Decluttering says, this item no longer serves our household, and I can steward it well by selling, donating, or giving it away. John the Baptist even gives this heart check in Luke 3:11. He says, anyone who has two shirts should share one with you as none, and anyone who has food should do the same. I think profit chasing maybe becomes unhealthy when it creates pressure or consumes your time or tempts you to overprice or misrepresent or keeps you emotionally tied to possessions. So you might sort items into maybe three simple groups. Sell what has clear value, donate what would take too much time to sell, and give away what could bless someone quickly. And as a single mom, your time and peace matter too. So sometimes profit is not only money, it could be breathing room or order or generosity or less mental load. So maybe a good prayer is just to say, Lord, help me hold these things loosely, but also act honestly and provide for my family wisely and also be generous where I can. Because I don't think you need to feel guilty for selling. Just let love and honesty and peace and wise stewardship, not fear or greed, set the pace for how you proceed with these. Is that helpful, though, at all?
It is. I like the categories very much. And I think out of everything, the peace and the time, like
that's right.
Mr. Becker was talking about, is extremely important with my daughter. So,
absolutely. And as a single parent, I know you have I've counseled with enough single parents to know that, you've got a lot on your plate, a lot you're trying to manage. That's not easy, both the financial side as well as the non-financial side. And just the fact that you're even thinking about it in this way says a lot, Angel, just about how much you want to honor the Lord and steward well what he has entrusted to you, which starts with your personal relationship with him and your kids, and yes, the financial resources that pass through your hands. So I'm so glad you called today, and if we can be of help further to you along the way, don't hesitate to call, okay?
Right. Thank you so much. I do appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Angel. God bless you. Let's head to Indianapolis. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Rob. Well, I heard you mention on air about a transfer on death forms, and I read about it online, and I found an example I partially filled out, and I'd like to take it to an attorney, look it over to make sure that everything's fine and make suggestions and changes. So I went to the Kingdom Advisor site and found a list in Indiana, but there was none really specific attorney in Indiana. There were many in Kentucky. So I talked then to a Kingdom Advisor, a planner, financial planner. They gave me one suggestion for an attorney, but I didn't get a call back. Called a couple, 3 times. So I definitely prefer to find a Christian attorney, but I don't know really where to look instead of just kind of randomly choosing from the internet. Any suggestions you would have would be great.
Yeah, I'm glad you are thinking about this. And yes, the TOD is absolutely available there in Indiana and can be a great way for you to essentially have a beneficiary on the property where you're allowing the property, once it's properly recorded, to pass directly to that named beneficiary outside of probate while you remain in full control during your lifetime. Let me just give you another suggestion here. There is an office of Blue Trust, Blue as in Ron Blue, the firm that he founded, of Christian financial planners and investment folks, right there in Indy. And they would absolutely be able to refer you to a godly estate planning attorney. Just call and tell them you listen to this program, and they'd be happy to help you, I know. And maybe you'll get another name or two of somebody you could reach out to locally to you. So if you just go in your search engine and put in Blue Trust Indianapolis, and it'll bring up the page for the office there. And the phone number will be right there, and you can call and ask for that referral.
Yes, I called Blue Trust. And
is that who you called?
Really,
oh, interesting.
Yeah, they really didn't know about the TODs, and they said they don't deal with that. But I'm not sure. I called them. That's in the King Advisor, and I think I called Ameritrust also planner. Okay. And
they're not attorneys, so they wouldn't be able to do that for you. They would certainly know what it is as a planning tool. Well, so then I guess the next step would be to go just keep working the list. So if you go, to findacka.com and go to Indianapolis, I mean, you're going to see dozens of certified Kingdom Advisors, and every one of them will have a godly estate planning attorney that they work with, and I'm confident you're going to find one of them that would be able to give you a name of somebody that would call you back. If you don't, that's a bigger problem. But I would just kind of work through that list and ask for referrals.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go down the list. Yeah, I started with Blue Trust, but I'll go ahead and do some more calling. I appreciate
Excellent.
that, Rob. That's
Absolutely, Michael. Appreciate you being a regular listener, sir. And if I can serve you in any other way along the way, don't hesitate to call. We'd love to help you anytime we can. 800-525-7000 is the number to call. We've got some lines open today, and we'll be taking your questions throughout the remainder of the broadcast. So when we come back, we'll head to Florida and talk to Sharon. And she retired a couple of years ago, is receiving Social Security, but she's wondering about going back to work again, and she's wondering how that taxation on her Social Security may work. So we'll chat about that, and perhaps your question as well. Again, the number to call with lines open. We've got room for you, 800-525-7000. Hey, as we head toward the end of our fiscal year here in 8 days, June the 30th, this is a really important time for us to finish the year strong. So if you love the ministry, consider a gift to FaithFi. It's tax deductible. Just go to faithfi.com/give. That's faithfi.com/give to learn how you can partner with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. We'll get to as many calls as we can here in this final segment. Let's head to Florida. Sharon, how can I help you?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I retired at my full retirement age, and I stayed retired for 2 years, was receiving my Social Security, but then I went back to work. So now I'm receiving Social Security and my paycheck. So I was wondering, I don't want to get hit hard at the end of the year with taxes. My accountant suggested that I have the Social Security take out taxes from my Social Security, and I went on to look at the form, and it was something like 11% up to 22%. Is that something that's advisable?
Yeah. Yes. So, when you add wages from a job to your Social Security income, a larger portion of your Social Security benefit may become taxable. So you've got a couple of options. You can have the taxes withheld from Social Security, so you can ask them to withhold the federal income tax from your benefits. You can increase your withholding at work as a second option, and a lot of times that's easier just to adjust the withholding through your employer's payroll system. You can also make estimated tax payments. How much are you planning to earn from this job over a 12-month period?
About $110,000.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so a pretty sizable income. And so at that level, what's likely going to happen is up to 85% of your Social Security benefit will be taxable. So it isn't really whether you'll owe tax on the Social Security, it's really how much. So that will push you into a situation where, rather than having to withhold only from Social Security, I'd probably look at increasing the withholding from your paycheck. That's going to be the simplest way to go. And if the withholding from work isn't sufficient, then you can look at another option. But I would just go ahead and plan on 85% of your Social Security benefit being also taxable on top of the $110,000, and then you can back into perhaps working with a CPA or tax preparer to make sure that enough is being withheld from your paycheck.
Do you recommend a certain percentage? Because when I went on the form, it said that I could take up to 22%, which I was going to go with the highest, just not knowing. And I did go to my employee. They are withholding taxes at a higher rate, but I guess I can do it at even more higher, so I don't get really hit hard at the end of the year. Because the income that I'm making, I'm helping my daughter through school, so it's really getting eaten up with what I'm paying for her tuition. Yeah,
no, I totally get it. And so I think you're right. I mean, the 22% withholding option exists, but withholding rates and tax brackets aren't the same thing. So I wouldn't automatically jump to 22. Part of your income is already being withheld through payroll. And so if you're earning $110,000 as an employee, the federal taxes are likely already coming out of your check. And then only 85% of that Social Security is going to be taxable. So the goal is to cover the total tax bill. and we don't want you to have a big refund at the end of the year. So I would say, could 22 be appropriate? Could be, but I wouldn't choose it based solely on your salary. I'd want to look at what is your total benefit and what is being withheld. So I think perhaps connecting with a CPA just to determine, what will your actual taxable income be, looking at what's already being held, 85% of the Social Security, and then, whatever deductions you're going to have. They could probably dial it in pretty closely and tell you exactly what to withhold at that point. I would probably lean toward the 12% just as a starting point.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Yeah, and you too, Sharon. Thanks for being on the program. Let's go to Ohio. Jen, how can I help you? Jen, are you there? All right, looks like we have a little challenge connecting with Jen, so let's head to Georgia and talk to Denise. Go right ahead, Denise. Denise, are you with us there in Georgia?
Yes, I'm with you. I had put it on mute. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for what you do. We enjoy your program so much.
Well, thank you for being on today.
My husband and I are both retired. We babysit our grandchildren in our home, and we're having to travel a lot to pick them up. And we've just decided to sell our very large home to our daughter and her husband and family, and then build us on the back side of the property a mother-in-law suite, so that we're all in our own little commune on our property. And my question was, do you suggest us maybe refinancing and adding them on to the title, or just selling it outright to them and just pray nothing bad happens?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. And, a lot of people, as more communal living is on the rise, are having to think about this. And this is one of those situations where family and real estate and estate planning all intersect. So you want to think carefully before deciding whose names goes on a loan or even a title. And I would say don't put your name on the loan simply to protect yourself. I mean, a loan creates liability, but it also, ownership creates the rights. And so those are two different things. Are you looking to sell the home at fair market value or at a discount to your daughter and son-in-law?
A major discount, just what we owe on it. In other words, if we had to reassume the loan, it would be, nothing out of the ordinary. We would still be able to afford it.
Okay, and you're planning on them
selling them the house at that cheap of a price, and if there was something that bad did happen, that we would not lose our home.
Yeah. So are you wanting them to be the owner of the property after the sale?
We would like for them to be the owner, but we also want to protect ourselves in case there was a divorce or something that bad happened, because you never know what could happen. We don't want to just be kicked out of our mother-in-law suite with nowhere to go.
Yes.
Because we would have given them the home, with $200,000 worth of equity in it. We would have lost all of that.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
My question was, should we add our name, like refinance with all four of our names on the loan, or just pray that everything goes okay?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this is where I think you need to get with an estate attorney just to focus on all the dynamics here, because the issue really isn't the loan. Being on the loan, again, makes you responsible for the debt, but it doesn't guarantee your right to live there if there is a divorce or a bankruptcy or a lawsuit or some other disagreement. So I'd focus on protecting your occupancy rights and possibly your what's called equity contribution. So some options an attorney might discuss, and this is really what your next step is to visit with an attorney, is they could do something called a life estate, which gives you the legal right to live on the property for the rest of your life, even though ownership ultimately belongs to your daughter and son-in-law. And then there can be a recorded occupancy agreement. So it's a formal agreement that specifies your right to occupy the mother-in-law suite, your responsibility for expenses, what happens if the property's sold, what happens in the event of a divorce. And then the ownership interest would be separate from that. So if you're effectively gifting substantial equity, which is what you're doing by selling below market value, an attorney is going to want to talk about whether retaining a partial ownership interest makes sense rather than turning over full ownership of the property. And then you're also going to want to do trust planning. So depending on the size of the gift, a trust arrangement could provide additional protection. And then the final question is, to your point about the divorce question, if the property becomes marital property and the couple later divorces, you don't want your housing situation to depend on a court sorting out their assets. So that's why it's important to have your rights documented now, before, any of those things could happen down the road. So I think that's why you need to get with an attorney to talk about all of these things: the life estate, the occupancy agreement, the ownership interest, which I would put forward. Maybe you don't want to give 100% ownership interest in this, and then how to deal with the trust aspect of this as well.
Okay. That made complete sense. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. And listen, I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, but I think it's also good to be wise and to think about the stewardship responsibility you have to care for this. And, it's great on the front end, but down the road, we want to think about what can go awry. And the last thing we'd want is for you all to, A, not have, a place to live for the rest of your life, or B, for there to be a family strain because you didn't put the time in on the planning on the front end. But if on the front end, there's clarity and clear communication and things are documented and legally binding, it allows you to honor them and do a wonderful thing, but also protect yourself at the same time, which is also good stewardship. And so I think, it's kind of a win-win when we think about it like you are, but it's definitely going to involve you getting with an estate attorney. If you don't have one, Denise, just contact a certified Kingdom advisor there in Georgia and ask for a referral to a godly estate attorney, and he or she can work all this out with you. It may cost, a few $1,000s to put all the pieces in place, but it's going to be well worth your time and expense. So to find a certified Kingdom advisor to give you a referral, just go to findacka.com, and any one of those certified Kingdom advisors could refer you to an attorney. Thanks for being on the program today. Lord bless you. Jen in Ohio, I understand we have you back. Unfortunately, I'm out of time, so let's see if we can get you scheduled to be first up tomorrow. We'd love to have you on the program. Big thanks to my team today, Tahira, Taylor, Josh, Omar, and everybody here at Faith Fi. Faith and Finance Live is a partnership between Moody Radio and Faith Fi. If you want to support our work, go to faithfi.com/give, and then come back and join us tomorrow. We'll see you then.